أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته ليلة الجمعة مبارك. Well, like every other Thursday, or like every Thursday, we will continue today. We'll start with the Surah of the Qur'an from the 29th juz. Today we will be looking at Surah Al We will then look at an extract from Dua Al Kumayl. We will look at the A to Z of Islam, and we'll finish off now with Sura Al Waaqia. Remember, we did Surah Al Yasin because that's one of the recommended surahs to be recited on a Friday. But last week I also told you about Surah Al Waaqia and how important it was about recitation on a Friday. For example, we're told that one who recites Surah Al Waaqia on the night of Friday, which is tonight, will be loved by divinity and people. He or she will be kept safe from sadness, poverty, from neediness and misfortunes. It's a surah that's dedicated to Imam Ali, and one who recites it will be in his company. There's forgiveness of sins, there's sustenance. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So if you were to recite Surah Al Waaqia, the number of times according to the lunar date, so today is the 17th of Dhul Qa'dah, so you'd recite it 17 times for sustenance, and you're never afflicted by need. So that's what we're going to recite at the end, inshallah. But before anything, let's look at Surah Al-Muzammil, and then we will recite it. So Surah Al-Muzammil is the 73rd surah of the Qur'an. It's a Makki surah. And Muzammil is the wrapped one. If you were to say Zammiluni, it means wrap me lovingly in a blanket. Maybe the word that comes to mind, or the phrase that comes to mind, is snug as a bug in a rug. Have you heard of that phrase? So that basically means it's that loving wrapping, like when I don't know whether you do this, but I do that. If I sit in my lounge, then I have a blanket or a wrap, and I just hold it over me, and it feels snug. It's not because I'm cold, it's not because I need it, but it just feels good. So this is talking about Muzammil, or the one who wrapped himself in his cloak because he was in awe of the rest of the revelations that came to him, and it's addressing the Prophet. It's 20 ayat, and the focus of the surah is the importance of conversing with divinity, with Allah at night, so you get strength to work during the day. And it's really directed at the Prophet. In fact, the first part is, I'll tell you what we have to do, but the first ayah 1 to 9 are directed to the Prophet, and you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling him, "Oh, ya ayyuhal muzammil, oh you who are snugly wrapped up. Qum fa'anzir, qum al-layla illa," sorry, this is the other surah, Muddathir. It says, "Qum al-layla illa kalila." Rise to pray in the night, except a little. In other words, you talk to me all the night. Nisfahu, aw inqus minhu qalila, half of it or a little bit to it. And it says, or you add to it, and recite the Qur'an as it ought to be recited, with tartil. Imam Ali says, tartil means you should have the right makharij, the right tajweed. You should recite it slowly, because in the morning you've got time to do it. And focus exclusively on Allah. So that's your first section. The second section now talks about those who rejected the Prophet, who mocked him. And Allah says, you know what, have sabr, leave them alone. He says, leave them alone, I will deal with them. And he gives the historical example of Fir'aun, what happens to him. And then there's a graphic picture of the day of Qiyamah. And in the third section, so it tells you and me what to do. First of all, it takes away the wajibat of reciting Salatul Layl. We're told that it used to be, that was wajib to recite Salatul Layl. So here we're told something else, 5 things. So can you remember them? The first one, recite as much Qur'an as possible, especially in the morning. It was really important. The second thing, establish salah. Make it part of your life. Third, give zakah. So if you're establishing salah, then you need to serve humanity. That's what zakah is all about. Fourth thing was qarz hasana. Do you know what qarz hasana is? It's giving somebody a loan and then not putting a deadline on it, not saying I want it at this and this a time, but making sure they don't feel obliged, but saying, here, take this and give it back whenever you want, or pass it on, whatever you want to do. And the fifth one is to ask for forgiveness. So there's 5 things we're told to do. So if you're ready, You ready? So let's recite Surah Al-Muzammil. I have my Papa's Quran, so recite with me. And it's always nice to have a copy of the Quran to recite it with. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhal muzammil. قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجهيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك والله يقدر الليل والنهار علم أن لن تحصوه فتاب عليكم فاقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فاقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق الرسول الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, so now we're going to look at an extract from Dua al-Kumayl. So let me go again and I'll keep on repeating this until you absolutely know it, okay? So Dua al-Kumayl is known as Dua al-Khidr. Okay, his name was Talia. He was the great grandson of Shem, who was the son of Prophet Nuh. Wherever he sat, it became green. There were flowers. It was beautiful, and therefore he's known as Khidr. Okay, in Surah Al-Kahf, and I've told you this before, it's just a reminder, Prophet Musa meets Khidr, and this is his parting advice to Prophet Musa. He says, never put down a person because of a sin he may have committed, because you don't know what you've done. And he says 3 things Allah loves. He likes it when you don't go over the top, you're moderate, or even when you have a lot. You forgive despite being able to take revenge. And you have kindness with everyone. You show kindness. Allah is kind to you on the day of Qiyamah. And finally said, if you want to know how to be wise, then be God conscious. Imam Rida says that Prophet Khidr is at every Hajj and he keeps Imam Mahdi company. Isn't that awesome? Right. So where we stopped last week, we're going to continue from there. So we're going to start with the place where we start with Allahumma adhuma bala'i. You found where it is? Okay. The last thing we did last time was we stopped at وَكَمْ مِنْ ثَنَاءٍ جَمِيلٍ لَسْتُ أَحْلَ لَهُ نَشَرْتَ. How many beautiful things that you have spread about me. So let's start with the next section. Allahumma adhuma bala'i. Oh Allah, my tests, the trials, the difficulties I have, they are so great. You know, we recite the dua al-ahad when you say ilahi adhumal bala. It's the same thing. My tribulations, my trials, so great. Wa afrata bi su'u hali. I'm in a lot of trouble. That's what you say. And then, you know, afrata means increased. That means my trouble is just increased. I'm in a bad state. وَقَصُرَتْ بِي أَعْمَالِي. My deeds are so few. They're not enough. وَقَعَدَتْ بِي أَغْلَالِي. And aghlal is the plural of ghalla. Means like something that chains you, that imprisons you. And you're saying, my sins, the things that I've done that are wrong, there are chains around me. They've tied me down. وَحَبَسَنِي النَّفْعِ بُعْدُ عَمَلِي. And all these hopes I have, these whole aspirations I have, they're holding me back. وَخَدَعَتْنِي الدُّنْيَا بِغُرُورِهَا. And I keep on getting deluded by the world. وَنَفْسِي بِجِنَايَتِهَا. And my soul, with all the bad things I've done. وَمِتَالِي. And my procrastination, my laziness, basically. So look what we said. We said, Ya Allah, so many tests and trials. I'm in a lot of trouble. I have very few deeds. The chains of my sins have tied me down. I've got so many hopes. I want to do so much. But I don't pace myself. The world is deluding me. I see things in the world and I forget that there's an akhirah as well. And then my soul, and I look at it and I've done so much wrong, and I'm a bit lazy too. That's basically what we're saying. So then we say, Ya Sayyidi, oh my master, فَأَسْأَلُكَ, I ask you, بِإِزَّتِكَ, with your izzah, with your might, أَنْ لَا يَحْجُبَ عَنْكَ دُعَائِ. Don't put a hijab between me and my dua. So it's saying, don't put a barrier on my du'as. Su'u amali wa fi'ali. Because of my deeds, the ones that I intend to do badly intentionally and the unintentional ones. So you're saying, please don't stop my du'as just because of the bad things I do. وَلَا تَفْضَحْنِي بِخَفِيِّ مَا اطَّلَعْتُ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سِرِّي. And don't disgrace me. That means don't humiliate me because of the secret bad things I do that only you know. And then we tell him, وَلَا تُعَاجِلْنِي بِالْعُقُوبَةِ عَلَى مَا عَمِلْتُ فِي خَلَوَاتِي. Don't hurry the punishment on me because of, now you say 6 things. The first one I said, مَا عَمِلْتُهُ فِي خَلَوَاتِي, what I did in private. مِنْ سُوءِ فِعْلِي وَإِسَاءَتِي, my secret evil acts. وَدَوَامِ تَفْرِيتِي, my continuous negligence of you. وَجَهَالَتِي, my ignorance. وَكَثْرَةَ شَهَوَاتِي وَغَفْلَتِي, my desires and my forgetfulness. Remember those 6 things we're saying. Don't stop my du'as. Don't humiliate me. And don't hurry the punishment. These are the 3 things we ask for in Dua Kumayl. And we say, because of 6 things I do, what I do in private, how do I change myself? I don't do bad things. I try really hard. My secret evil acts, not even my thoughts, I put a cross on them. I remember many, many years ago, I used to talk to a child who used to have nightmares and he couldn't sleep. So I remember telling him that maybe when you go to sleep and you see those nightmares, imagine you have a black pen, really Sharpie, basically, a thick black pen. Every time you see those nightmares, just put a cross on them. And a few weeks later, when I saw him, he was a happy kiddo. He said, I don't have nightmares anymore. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's wonderful. How did you do that? He said, I put a black cross on all of them. So in the same way, when you think bad things, imagine you've got a pen in your hand, you're putting a black cross on it. We say, my continuous negligence. You know what? I don't give importance to the things that are important. Those where I have to do something for humanity. Those where I have to pray. I have to connect myself to Allah. Or jahalati, my ignorance. So learn about them. That's the way solution towards it. And وَكَثْرَةَ shahawati. I always want. Maybe I should give. And my forgetfulness. So now let's go back to Dua al-Kumayl. And if you've got a copy of your Dua al-Kumayl, read with me. We're going to recite from the beginning right up to here. Are you ready? Let's go. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay'. وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفي بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانيا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لكبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاتهم من البلاء أقلت وكم من إثار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحلا له نشرت اللهم عظم بلائي وعفرت بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفع بعض عملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So we're going to continue with the A to Z of Islam, but before that, it's still the month of Dhul Qa'dah. It's the 17th of Dhul Qa'dah. Got 13 days to the end of Dhul Qa'dah. And remember, it's a month in which hardships are resolved. Right? You really have to pray hard. Remember I told you about Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Try and fast one at least. See how you go. It's also still Arba'in Kalimiyah. You remember Arba'in Kalimiyah? Okay? Prophet Musa goes on to Mount Sinai on the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah. And he stays there for 40 days, right? We see it in Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 142. So Allah says, come to me for 30 days and adds another 10 more. So 40 days is up there and he's chit-chatting to Allah. So our job too during this Arba'in Qalamiyah, look, 17 days have gone. We've got 23 left. Got to sit and chat to him. 13 for Dhul Qa'dah and for the first 10 of Dhul Hijjah. So Dhul Qa'dah is still a very, very important month. Also a reminder, it's one of the 4 months that are deemed sacred in the Qur'an. In Surah At-Tawbah, Allah says there are 4 sacred months. You remember which ones they are? Go and tell me. Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, next one, Muharram, and what's the 4th one? That's right, Rajab. Okay, so now let's let the A to Z of Islam. So we looked at A for Allah, B for best. You got to be your best at everything. C for, that's right, charity. And D for we did oh God, I've said it, haven't I? 2 weeks on D. Dua, that's right. And last we looked at the different ways we would do dua with our hands, right? So now we're looking at E. Oh my God, that's a difficult word. E for ethics. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see where the word comes from. So the word ethics is from the Greek word ethos, which means a habit. Okay, so ethics is really something that takes over your whole life. It's stuff that you do without having to think. Look at what the Prophet says. He says, I have been sent, if only to raise the akhlaq of human beings. And he says, good akhlaq melts sins just as the sun melts snow on the face of the earth. So what is the word akhlaq? Akhlaq is the plural of khuluq. And it's how you behave with khulq, what Allah has created. How you behave with creation is your akhlaq. It's something that you don't need to think about. It comes from inside. It's not like something that you're forced to do. Just like, for example, if you see something that's funny, you just laugh. It's not like you try not to, but you just laugh. It comes. If you see something sad or you feel sad, you look sad. Tears fall down your eyes, and sometimes you just can't stop it. But there is also some of the stuff that you do that comes out of training or habit. And sometimes it's difficult. But when you do it a lot of times, it becomes part of you. And that becomes part of your akhlaq. Because you keep on doing that which is right. And it's really important to try and do things that are right. A man came up to the Prophet and he said, what is the best of actions? What shall I do which is the best thing I can do? And the Prophet said, akhlaq. So he said, akhlaq? And he said, yes, akhlaq. Your manners, how you would behave with other people. There's loads of hadiths, but one that I love is تَخَلُّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. Adopt in yourself the akhlaq of Allah, which means learning the Asma al-Husna, looking at what Allah is, all the attributes, Rahman, Rahim, and then seeing how do I put them in myself. For example, we love saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and we should before everything. The first thing we say is Allah is Rahman and Rahim. So if He is merciful, we should be merciful to others. He is forgiving. We always want His forgiveness. If He is forgiving, we should forgive others. Look at the way Allah behaves. He even treats those who reject Him, who hate Him, with so much love. We should do that too. These are the things we should do. Now, the 3 things the Prophet was known as, and these are the first 3 things. In fact, if we can put those 3 things in our life, we're done. And you could call them TTC, but it's quite easy to say TLC. Everybody likes TLC because it's tender, loving care. But T is for truthfulness. You always have to be able to tell the truth. But more than that, you have to be true to someone. That means when you are dealing with someone, you got to do it in truth, not pretend. And you got to be really good. L is for loyalty. Really have to be loyal, really trustworthy. Never, never, never break somebody's trust. If somebody trusts you, don't ever break it. Be loyal. Never break a heart. It's awful. It's horrible. That's not what you do. If you promise something, do it. It's a wonderful story about the Prophet who was sitting on a rock or waiting for someone. And it was a long time, and the sun was coming up, and it was really hot. And somebody came up and said, Ya Rasulullah, why didn't you come in the shade? He said, because I promised this person I was going to meet him here. He's delayed a little, but I promised I'd be here, and I can't break my promise. It's really important to keep our promises. That's loyalty. And C is for compassion. Oh my goodness, that goes a long way. The Prophet is known as Rahmatul lil Alameen. Compassion is utter kindness. Even when you don't feel like being kind, you just gotta be kind. And it always starts within oneself. So when you're kind to yourself, you don't want to go to the fire, so you will make sure you don't do anything wrong. But then it starts off with your family. It starts off with your parents, your siblings. How do you behave towards them? Do you shout at them? Are you rude? What about mom? My goodness. You just cannot, not even for a moment, to your parents, raise your voice. That's just not on. You can't do that. Jannah is under her feet, right? Under mom's feet. Even if you're the nicest person on the universe, if you hurt her even a little bit, you won't even smell Jannah. The fragrance, not even the fragrance, even 50,000 years distance away. That's how much. And we'll talk about moms, inshallah. Maybe next week, part of ethics, we'll talk about the importance of a mom and dad as well. But it's how we behave that's really, really important. So I'll leave you with 4 things to think about. Always be conscious that you're watched. Always. Imagine you're on television and you're being watched all the time by masses of angels. They're just watching you. Second, stop hurting others. Just don't hurt them. You put it inside yourself, a mantra, keep on repeating it again. Conscious of Allah, know you're being watched. Remember, there's angels sitting on our shoulders and they're writing things down. Don't hurt others. Do the best you can. And when somebody is mean to you, don't respond in the same way. Respond with compassion, with kindness. My Papa died when I was 10, but he always used to tell me, kill them with kindness. If anybody is really mean to you, kill them with kindness. And I remember that because it works. Doesn't matter what they say to you, what they say about you. Even if they're, whatever they are, mean, kill them with kindness. That's what the Prophet did. And that's the way we should be too. That's what ethics is all about. Ethics is not about being nice when we're all feeling good and everybody's hunky-dory and hi, how are you, and smiling. No. Akhlaq is about when somebody is awful to you, and how you respond tells what your true nature is all about. So really, really important. Inshallah, we'll continue next week, and inshallah, we'll stay with ethics, And I know we're going to do P for parents somewhere, but let's talk about mom here. I think it's really, really important. So maybe next week we'll talk about mom. Right, I'd like to go to Sura Al Waaqia, because I said this is a surah that's important to recite on Friday, night of Friday, even on Friday. Now, normally we forget, we only recite Surah Al Yasin, but there's so many surahs, and this is one of them, okay? So Surah Al Waaqia has 96 ayat. It's quite a long surah. It's a Makki surah. I will repeat what I said in the beginning, so always repetition is good. Quran says, enough ati dhikra. To repeat something is always a benefit. Now, the way I do things, and I'm going to show it to you. So, for example, Surah Al-Muzammil, I have here. So, I've got the building stuck there. And then I write about it on this side. Now, let me show you Surah Al Waaqia. And you can go onto the website on Q Fatima. You can go into a journey through Quran City. And you can download the buildings like that. So that's my Surah Al Waaqia. And then I make notes at the side. So you do that for every single surah of the Quran. Okay, so we're going to look at Surah Al Waaqia. So I'll start again by saying, one who recites Surah Al Waaqia on the night of Friday will be loved by Allah, will be loved by people, be safe from sadness, poverty, neediness, and misfortunes. It's a surah dedicated to Imam Ali. Isn't that awesome? I mean, Imam Ali, can you imagine reading a surah that's dedicated to him? And you will understand why. And you'll be in his company, forgiveness of sins, sustenance, I told you, my goodness. And you'll never be afflicted by need. Now let's look at the focus of the surah. Okay, so every surah you need to know focus. If you look on the buildings, it's right up here, up there. It says focus. So it says there are three groups of people. So we'll be categorized. There are three groups of people on the Day of Judgment. There's a tour of the two levels of Jannah. So Jannah has a first class section and a business section. There is no economy in Jannah. Okay, so it's two sections and it takes you to a tour. The punishment to those who deny divine guidance. So they didn't believe in the Prophet, they mocked him, and the other thing they denied is accountability. They said, we're going to die and that's it. We're not going to be accountable. We don't have to give any accounts. There'll be no day of judgment. And then it talks about the awesomeness of the Quran. It's such a beautiful surah. So did you know that when the last ayah of this surah is revealed, you know what the last ayah is? I've got my Quran here. So I'm going to look at it and it says, what does it say? فَسَبِّحْ بِسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْعَظِيمِ. The moment it was revealed, the Prophet said, اجعل في ركوعكم. Put it into your ruku. In essence, Surah Al Waaqia is like an extension of Surah Al Rahman. It's just like, it just takes over. It's also a reflection. So you can see the same things in Surah Al Rahman. We've divided the surah into 7 sections. Can you remember that? So Surah Al Waaqia, 7 sections. Now today we're going to look at the first section. And this is from ayah 1 to 11. And we're going to go through each of the verses of this ayah. And we see what it's talking about. So it starts off by saying, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. So when what will happen? When the great event will happen. You know, even if you're speaking Gujarati or Kutchi or Urdu maybe, you will say Waaqia. What happened? Tell me what happened, right? So you say Waaqia. So here, إِذَا when, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ Waaqia, when this great event will happen. So normally when somebody says when, you and I want to know then what. So when it happens, then what will happen? But Allah continues. He says, لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةٌ. My goodness. He said, it is undeniable. You can't say it won't happen. He says, Laysa not, liwaqatiha kadhiba. You will not be able to call it a lie. In other words, it will definitely happen. Okay, so we've got that. Then the third ayah says, khafidatur rafi'ah. Some people will be khafid, you know, some people will be lowered and some people will be raised. I was talking to my 3-year-old granddaughter the other day, and she was telling me the new words that she'd learned. She'd learned about increase and decrease. And she said, Nani, increase is making a lot and decrease is making a little. And it's the same thing. So I thought of this. I thought of Khafidatul Rafi'ah. Khafida is to put down, Rafia is to raise, right? So maybe it's talking about what will happen. The mountains that are so high will come down, and the sea that is so flat will bubble over. Maybe it's talking about that. Or maybe it's talking about people, those who are arrogant and walked out straight and looked down at people, they will be put down. And those who are humble and who did lots of sajdas, they will be raised up. Maybe that's what it's talking about. So think about it. Khafidatul Rafi'a. Then he says, what will happen? إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً. Just like zilzal, when the earth will be shaken with a severe shaking. Can you imagine? Just like إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. So here it says, إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً. When the earth will be shaken. وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا. And the mountains will just crumble. They will just come down. My goodness. فَكَانَتْ حَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. And they will look like scattered dust. So can you imagine these big mountains? It's just like somebody put an explosion in them and they just collapsed. They will just collapse. And then he says, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. And then you will be in 3 categories. So the first category, how many? 3. Let's get the first one. He says, فَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. The companions of Maymana. Now you know in Arabic, Yameen is right hand. Shimal is left. So right and left. So he says, فَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. Maymana is right hand. So the companions of the right hand, مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. How awesome are the companions of the right hand. Isn't that awesome? So, Fashabu, first group, companions of the right hand. And that's where we want to be. Remember, always, the right hand is known as the hand of righteousness. You know that, don't you? And we're told that on the day of judgment, if we've done well, books be given in the right hand. If we've not done well, books be given in your left hand. And he says, وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ. My goodness. And the companions of the left hand, مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ. How awful, how unfortunate the companions of the left hand will be. And you know, when you read Qur'an and you see that, you say, I don't want to be one of those. And when you see Ashabul Mayman, I want to be one of those. But then there's a third group. And this is the group that Imam Ali belongs to. وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ. My goodness. And the first and the foremost and those who are right ahead. In other words, those who are the winners. Sabiq is a winner. So, but Allah mentions it twice. وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ. They're winners in the dunya and they're winners in the akhirah. So they're first everywhere. You know, we talked about B's for best. That's what it's talking about. They did their best in everything. Absolutely everything. And then he says, أُولَٰئِكَ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. They are the ones who are really, really, really close to Allah. It's amazing. You know, every niyyah we say, قُرْبَةً إِلَى اللَّهِ. We say we're doing this because we want closeness to Allah. And closeness to Allah means doing our best. So when you read this, you say, we want to be part of the winners too. That's why the surah says it's associated with Imam Ali. He won. You know what he said when the sword hit his head? Remember? On the 19th of Ramadan. So the sword has hit his head. It's gone through him. He says, فُزْتُ بِرَبِّ الْكَعْبَةِ. I have been successful. I have won with the Rabb of the Kaaba. That's why this surah is about him. It's talking about winners. And that's where we want to be. We want to be at a place where when the angel of death comes and says, time up, we can say, I did my best. That's right. I did my best in every part of my life to be able to leave the world a better place than what I found it in. Okay, so if you're ready, let's read Sura Al Waaqia until Ayah 11. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق الرسول الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. Right, we're now going to recite the Sura Al Waaqia for the marhumin, for those who are ill and for those who are in trouble. These are the days and nights to pray for them. One, it's Dhul Qa'dah. So I told you, for hardships to go away. Also, it's the night of Friday. It's like two things together, and tomorrow. Then we're going to recite the dua for protection. And then we're going to recite the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah. Are you ready? Come on. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Close your eyes. Ask Allah to give the thawabs to all the marhumin, especially those to your family. Pray for those who are ill, please. Pray for those who are in difficulty. Pray for the children of Yemen. They're really suffering. And not only pray, maybe you can do something for them. You know, there's a Gujarati saying which says, "Fool nahi to fool nahi pankri." If you can't give a flower, at least a petal. Try and do something for them. Right, let's read the dua for protection. لي خمسة أطفي بها هر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة لي خمسة أطفي بها هر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to understand His book, to make us part of Ashabul Yameen and Sabiq, winners basically in our life. Check out the new website. We've got a new website now. It's qfatima.com. Maybe you'll be able to find all the resources on there. And inshallah, I will see you again possibly next Thursday. I think it's next Thursday that I see you, right? So I'll see you again next Thursday. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.